Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Chapter 1. Senior Monitor Vexalan had served at Observation Post Theta 9 for 47 years. In all that time, nothing unusual had ever happened. The job was simple and mind-numbingly boring. Watch the sensor arrays, record the data streams, and report anything anomalous. But nothing was ever anomalous. Not in the Dominion of Kirith. The Dominion controlled 52,000 star systems. They possessed the most advanced technology in the known galaxy. Their eternal database contained information about every vessel, every species, every technological development that existed. The database was 63 million years old. It knew everything. That's why Vexalan stared at his display in complete disbelief. "That can't be right," he muttered. His 6 eyes blinked in rapid sequence, the involuntary response his people exhibited when confronted with impossibility. The display showed a vessel at the extreme edge of Dominion space. But this vessel wasn't in the database. There was no identification signature, no origin designation, no technological classification. The system simply labeled it unknown. That designation hadn't appeared on any Dominion sensor system in 14,000 years. Vexalan initiated the diagnostic protocol. Perhaps the equipment had finally failed after decades of flawless operation. He waited 4 minutes while the system verified every component, every connection, every algorithm. Everything functioned perfectly. He ran the diagnostic again. Same result. Then a third time. His appendages trembled slightly as he manipulated the interface. All systems nominal. The reading was genuine. But that wasn't even the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was the velocity. The vessel was moving at 0.87 light speed. Vexalan knew every fast ship in the galaxy. The Kirith Imperial Armada could achieve 0.58 light speed at maximum emergency power. The Thessian merchant consortiums, famous for their swift courier vessels, managed 0.53. Even the enigmatic Vorrax raiders only reached 0.49. Nobody moved at 0.87. It was theoretically impossible. The energy requirements alone would demand a power generation system the size of a small moon, and this vessel was modest, barely 300 meters in length. That was minuscule compared to Dominion vessels, yet somehow, it registered energy signatures equivalent to an entire battle group. Vexalan reached for the emergency transmission panel. His appendage shook. He had never activated this panel before. Nobody at Theta 9 had ever activated it. "This is Observation Post Theta 9 to Dominion High Command. Priority absolute. Repeat, priority absolute. We have detected an unknown contact." The response came immediately. "Theta 9. Confirm your last transmission. Did you designate the contact as unknown?" "Confirmed. Unknown vessel. No database correlation. Moving at 0.87 light speed. Bearing 117 Mark 4. A long pause followed. Then a different voice came through the channel. Deeper. Heavy with authority. "Theta 9. This is High Marshal Vorensar. Execute full diagnostic sweep and retransmit all sensor data. Your reading is impossible." "Already completed, High Marshal. 3 iterations. All systems nominal. The contact is genuine." Another pause. Vexalan could imagine the chaos erupting at High Command. The Sovereign herself would be notified within moments. The Grand Assembly would convene. This was unprecedented. "High Marshal," Vexalan said, his voice steadier now. "There's more. The vessel's trajectory leads directly towards Sector 31. That's the colony world Thessara. Population 11 billion. He heard the High Marshal utter an ancient Kirith curse language that hadn't been spoken in polite company for millennia. "All stations. This is High Marshal Vorensar. Contingency Protocol Omega is now active. I want the 2nd Fleet and 4th Fleet on intercept trajectories immediately. Activate every long-range sensor array from here to the outer boundaries. I want everything we can learn about this vessel." Vexalan watched his display as the Imperial Armada began mobilizing. Dozens of warships abandoned their patrol routes and accelerated toward the unknown contact. The fleet was impressive. Massive dreadnoughts that had protected the Dominion for countless millennia. Each vessel bristled with weapons capable of shattering worlds. But they were slow. At their maximum velocity, the fleet would require 13 hours to reach intercept position. The unknown vessel would arrive in 8. More data flowed through. Scientists across the Dominion analyzed every detail. The vessel's hull composition didn't match any known material in the database. Its energy signature corresponded to no recognized fusion, antimatter, or quantum propulsion system. Even its configuration was strange, sleek, and organic-looking, unlike the geometric designs the Kirath preferred. "Monitor Vexalan," one of his junior operators called out. "The vessel is decelerating." Everyone in the observation post turned to her display. She was correct. The vessel was slowing rapidly, impossibly rapidly. In just 4 minutes, it went from 0.87 light speed to a complete stop. Vexalan felt his circulatory system constrict. The inertial forces from that deceleration should have reduced every occupant to organic slurry. No living organism could survive such violence. Even with the most advanced inertial compensation systems, safe deceleration from those velocities required, at minimum, 40 minutes. This vessel accomplished it in 4. "What are they?" someone whispered. High Marshal Vorensar's voice returned to the channel. "All vessels hold position at maximum weapons range. Do not, I repeat, do not engage unless fired upon first. We don't understand what we're dealing with." The Imperial Armada formed a containment sphere around the unknown vessel. 340 warships, the pride of the Dominion, all weapons trained on one small craft that hung motionless in the void. Then something happened that made everything even stranger. The vessel began transmitting. "High Marshal, we're receiving a broadcast on all frequencies," Vexalan reported, "audio and visual combined." "Display it." Sound filled the observation post. It was a language, but not any language in the database. The system immediately began translation protocols. The process typically required seconds. The database contained millions of linguistic patterns. This time it required 53 minutes. Finally, text appeared on Vexalan's display. He read it aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. "We come in peace. We are explorers from Earth." Earth. The system searched the database. No results, no planet designated Earth existed in any record, no species from such a world, no documentation, nothing. The broadcast continued. The translation became more precise as the system learned additional patterns. "This is Captain Sophia Reyes, of the exploration vessel Prometheus. We mean no harm. We are on a mission of discovery and peaceful contact. We apologize if our arrival was unexpected. We didn't realize anyone inhabited this region. Our navigation charts showed empty space." High Marshal Vorensar's voice was carefully controlled. "Unknown vessel Prometheus. This is High Marshal Vorensar of the Kirath Imperial Armada. You have entered Sovereign Dominion space without authorization. You are surrounded. Deactivate your propulsion systems and prepare to be boarded." The response came quickly. The voice was female, calm, and surprisingly warm. "High Marshal Vorensar. Hello. Wonderful to meet you. We're absolutely willing to cooperate. Just one small question, though: how exactly do we deactivate? We're not using propulsion in the conventional sense. We can shut down the primary drive array if that would help." The High Marshal exchanged glances with his science advisor, senior scholar Methesian. The old scientist's face displayed complete bewilderment. "Not using propulsion in the conventional sense," Methesian repeated. "Then how are they achieving locomotion?" Captain Reyes answered as if she could hear him directly. "Oh, we utilize what we call an aggressive cascade fusion system. Enormous raw power output. Not particularly elegant, honestly. We're still resolving numerous technical issues, but it moves us where we need to go relatively quickly. Vexilin observed as additional analysis data streamed through. The Dominion scientists were approaching collective breakdown. Aggressive cascade fusion. That was a propulsion concept from 12,000 years ago. The Kyrith had abandoned it because it was far too unstable and wasteful, but somehow, these humans had made it function so effectively, they could travel at velocities that should be impossible. Captain Reyes, the High Marshal said slowly, "Where is Earth? How long has your species possessed faster-than-light capability?" Earth is approximately 7,000 light-years from here, in what you probably call the Outer Rim territories, and we've had FTL for about 90 years now. Why do you ask? The entire command center went silent. 90 years. The Kyrith required 5,000 years to progress from first FTL to their current velocity. These humans accomplished it in 90. Senior Scholar Methesian spoke into his communicator. "High Marshal, we need to study this. We need to understand their methodology. The implications are staggering." But High Marshal Vorensar was contemplating something else, something that deeply concerned him. If humans could advance this rapidly in 90 years, what would they become in 900? In 9,000? He observed the small vessel on his tactical display, surrounded by the overwhelming might of the Imperial Armada. For the first time in his extensive career, High Marshal Vorensar experienced something he'd never expected to feel. Genuine Fear, Chapter 2. Captain Sophia Reyes floated in the zero-gravity conference compartment of the Prometheus, studying the holographic display of the Kyrith warships surrounding her vessel. 340 dreadnoughts, each one at least 15 times larger than her ship. Their weapons were locked. One wrong calculation, and the Prometheus would become expanding debris. She smiled. "Well, team," she said to her crew, "I believe we've made quite an impression." Her chief engineer, Jackson Torres, laughed nervously. "An impression? Captain? We alarmed them so severely they mobilized their entire regional fleet." "Second Fleet and Fourth Fleet," their communications officer, Aisha Okonkwo, corrected. "According to their transmissions, they maintained 16 fleets total, so they only deployed 1/8 of their military." "Only 1/8. That's tremendously reassuring," Jackson said dryly. Sophia pushed off from the bulkhead and drifted toward the display. She studied the Kyrith vessels carefully. Magnificent designs, perfectly symmetrical, meticulously organized, everything in flawless formation. "They're traditionalists," she observed. "Examine that formation. It's from a doctrine manual. Probably the same doctrine manual they've been utilizing for 10,000 years. The display shifted. A Kyrith face materialized. 6 eyes, silver blue scaled skin, elegant angular features. This was High Marshal Vorensar. He appeared stern but not hostile, more perplexed than anything. "Captain Reyes," he said, "we are prepared to initiate discussions. Please prepare to receive our boarding party." "Boarding party?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "High Marshal, with respect, we're not surrendering. We haven't committed any violation. We're simply passing through. You entered Dominion space without authorization." "We didn't realize it was Dominion space. You're not on any of our charts. Actually, nobody's on our charts in this region. We assumed this entire area was uninhabited." The High Marshal's face displayed surprise. "Uninhabited? The Kyrith Dominion has existed for 300,000 years. We control 52,000 systems. How can we not appear on your charts?" Sophia shrugged. "We're from extremely far away. Earth is way out on the galactic rim. We've only been exploring for 90 years. We're still constructing our maps." 90 years, the High Marshal repeated slowly. He glanced at someone off-screen, then returned his attention to Sophia. "Captain, our scientists have analyzed your vessel. Your velocity is theoretically impossible with your power output. Your hull shouldn't survive the structural stress. Your inertial compensation doesn't correlate with any known technology. You should all be deceased." Yeah, we receive that assessment frequently, Jackson called out from behind Sophia. It's because we don't exactly follow the conventional laws of physics. We just sort of force our way through them. The High Marshal blinked all 6 eyes in sequence. Force your way through them? Sophia nodded. When we developed FTL, we couldn't determine the elegant solution, the proper methodology for folding space or whatever, so we simply constructed really large engines and pushed through. Brute force methodology. A new face materialized on the display beside the High Marshal, more aged with platinum markings across his scaled features. He wore ceremonial robes that indicated significant status. I am Senior Scholar, Mythesian, Chief Scientist of the Kyrith Dominion, he said. His voice trembled perceptibly. Captain Reyes, what you describe is beyond reckless. The energy requirements alone would demand a fusion core 10 times the volume of your vessel. We utilize 18 cores, Sophia said pleasantly. They're compressed quite efficiently. It's actually fairly uncomfortable in engineering because of the thermal output. Jackson has to wear a cooling suit. Senior Scholar Mythesian stared at her. 18 cores in a 300-meter vessel. Where does your crew reside? Oh, we don't have substantial crew space, just 22 people aboard. We sleep in bunks stacked 4 high. The remainder of the ship is engines, fuel storage, and life support. It's not luxurious, but it gets us around. 22 people, the scientist whispered. Managing 18 fusion cores. One malfunction and you would all perish instantaneously. That's why we have genuinely excellent engineers, Sophia said, gesturing toward Jackson. He's kept us alive for 4 years now. 4 years? Senior Scholar Mythesian looked horrified. How long do your vessels last? The Prometheus is our longest-running exploration vessel. Most of our ships are experimental. They typically last about 14 months before we have to rebuild them. We learn from each failure and improve the next iteration. The High Marshal and the scientist exchanged glances. Sophia could see them struggling to comprehend. In their civilization, vessels lasted for centuries. They were constructed to perfection. They followed every safety protocol. Humans didn't have that luxury. They were too new to space, so they experimented. They took risks. They failed frequently and learned rapidly. Captain, the High Marshal said slowly, we need to understand your technology. For the security of the Dominion, we must know how you achieve these velocities. We request that you share your propulsion data with us. Sophia's smile disappeared. Request or demand, High Marshal? Request, he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. I see. Sophia crossed her arms. And if we politely decline? Then we will be compelled to detain your vessel for further study. The conference compartment of the Prometheus went quiet. Aisha looked worried. Jackson cracked his knuckles nervously. Sophia just stared at the High Marshal. High Marshal Vorensar, she said, her voice cold now. Humanity didn't claw our way out of our gravity well and cross 7,000 light-years just to be intimidated. We came in peace. We've been nothing but cooperative, and now you're threatening us. It's not a threat. It's protocol. Unknown vessels must be verified. We're verified. We're human. From Earth. We explore space. That's all the verification you require. Senior Scholar Mythesian spoke quickly. Captain, please understand. In 300,000 years, the Kyrith have never encountered a species like yours. You advance too quickly. Your technology is too unpredictable. It makes the Dominion anxious. That sounds like a you problem, Sophia said bluntly. Not a me problem. The High Marshal's face hardened. Captain Reyes, I admire your determination, but you are one ship. We are 340. Stand down. Sophia glanced at her crew. Jackson gave her a tiny nod. Aisha checked her console and nodded too. The numbers were favorable. High Marshal, Sophia said, turning back to the display. Thank you for the conversation. It's been educational. We're going to continue our journey now. We'd appreciate coordinates to the nearest inhabited system where we can trade and resupply. That request is denied. You will remain here until... We're not requesting permission, High Marshal. We're being courteous. There's a distinction. Sophia pushed off toward her command station and secured herself into the restraint harness. Aisha, plot us a course to the nearest system. Any system. Jackson, prepare the experimental drive. The experimental drive? Jackson grinned. Captain, you realize that's not fully tested yet. When has incomplete testing ever stopped us? Besides, I'm curious to observe what this system can actually accomplish. The High Marshal's face filled with alarm. Captain, do not attempt to depart. We will fire on you. No, you won't, Sophia said calmly. You want to study us, remember? Can't study us if we're expanding plasma. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have destinations to reach. She nodded to Jackson. He activated a sequence on his console. The fusion cores roared to life, all 18 of them at maximum output. The Prometheus trembled. Alarms sounded. The lighting flickered. Captain, Jackson said, the experimental drive is displaying some instability. Will it function? Probably. Adequate for me. Engage. The Kyrith fleet reacted immediately. Weapon systems powered up. Commands were issued. The High Marshal was shouting something on the display. Then the Prometheus moved. It didn't accelerate like a conventional vessel. It didn't build velocity gradually. It simply departed. 0 to 0.93 light speed in 3 seconds. The Kyrith sensors lost tracking immediately. Their targeting systems couldn't compensate. One moment the Prometheus was there, surrounded by 340 warships. The next moment it was gone. On the bridge of his flagship, High Marshal Vorrax stared at the empty coordinates where the human vessel had been. Senior Scholar Methesian was gripping his console, his features pale. What just occurred? The High Marshal asked quietly. They're gone, High Marshal, the junior officer reported. Tracking lost. Last known heading was towards Sector 19 at 0.93 light speed. 0.93, Methesian repeated. That's 0.35 faster than us. They were restraining themselves before. They could have departed at any moment. The High Marshal lowered himself heavily into his command chair. Get me the Sovereign. Immediately. As the communication connected, Methesian spoke quietly. High Marshal, I need to analyze all data on these humans. Everything we recorded. Why? Because they terrify me, the scientist said honestly. And I believe they should terrify the Dominion as well. The High Marshal nodded slowly. For 300,000 years the Kyrith had been the dominant power. They possessed the best technology, the strongest military, the most comprehensive knowledge. But now, a species that barely departed their planet 90 years ago had just humiliated them. And somewhere in the back of his mind, High Marshal Vorrax had a disturbing thought. If humans could accomplish this in 90 years, what would they become in 900? Chapter 3. Sovereign Thessera occupied the eternal throne in the grand citadel of Kyrith Prime. Around her stood the members of the Grand Assembly. Every one of them appeared concerned. Some appeared frightened. In 300,000 years of Dominion history, an emergency assembly like this had only been convened 21 times. The holographic display showed the entire galaxy. Small red indicators marked where human vessels had been detected. There were 17 indicators, all in different sectors, all spotted within the last 8 days. This is impossible, Assembly Member Vorrax said, her voice sharp. One ship cannot be in 17 locations in 8 days. Even at their velocity, the distances are too great. High Marshal Vorrax stood at the center of the chamber. He appeared like he hadn't rested in days. They have more ships, at least 17, possibly more. Each one as fast as the Prometheus or faster. How many humans exist? The Sovereign asked quietly. Senior Scholar Methesian stepped forward, holding a data tablet. Based on energy signatures and vessel dimensions, We estimate each craft carries between 18 and 35 crew members. If they have 25 ships, that's approximately 500 to 900 humans currently in our space. 900, Assembly Member Drethanax laughed bitterly. 900 humans are making the entire Dominion anxious. This is humiliating. Should make us anxious, Methesian said sharply, because those 900 represent a species we completely underestimated. The holographic display changed. Now it showed the Prometheus's acceleration data. The curve was nearly vertical. Observe this, Methesian said. Their acceleration should kill them. The G-forces would compress their organs, liquefy their skeletal structure. But they survive. Either they have inertial compensation technology centuries ahead of ours, or... He paused. Or what? The Sovereign asked. Or they're simply more durable than us, physically stronger, more resistant to trauma. Methesian pulled up another image. It showed Captain Reyes from the video transmission. I've been studying their physiology. They're bipedal, like 72% of known species. But their bone density is remarkable. Their muscle structure is extremely efficient. They evolved on a heavy gravity world, probably around 1.15 standard gravities, so they're robust. That doesn't explain their technology, Drethanax said. No, but it explains their mentality, Methesian said. They come from a hazardous world. High gravity means more dangerous falls, more severe weather, stronger predators. They evolved to embrace risk because their entire planet is a risk. That's why they construct ships that should kill them. They're accustomed to danger. High Marshal Vorrax pulled up another report. There's more. We've intercepted human communications. They've established contact with the Thessari, the Cronath, and the Vesperian Collective. The chamber went silent. Those three species lived in the outer regions of Dominion space. The Kyrith had kept them technologically limited deliberately. It was easier to manage neighbors who couldn't construct advanced weapons or fast ships. What did the humans tell them? The Sovereign asked, her voice dangerous now. Everything, Vorrax said. Navigation data, medical technology, agricultural techniques. The humans are simply giving it away. No payment, no demands. They call it goodwill. Assembly Member Vorrax slammed her appendage on the table. This is unacceptable. They're destabilizing our entire region. Or creating allies, a younger Assembly member said quietly. His name was Jexathon, and he rarely spoke at meetings. Perhaps that's what the humans want. Allies, not subjects. We don't require allies, Vorrax snapped. We have order. We have stability. We have stagnation, Jexathon said, louder now. When was the last time the Dominion invented something genuinely new? Not an improvement on existing technology, but something revolutionary. The chamber went quiet. Nobody could answer. Jexathon continued. I've been studying the historical records. 6,000 years ago, we invented quantum communication. 5,000 years ago, we perfected antimatter containment. 4,000 years ago, we created the eternal database. But for the last 3,000 years, nothing. We've been maintaining what we have, perfecting it but not creating. Perfection requires time, Vorrax said coldly. Perfection is another word for being afraid to fail, Jexathon shot back. These humans fail constantly. Their ships break down. Their technology is dangerous. But they learn from every failure. They iterate. They improve. In 90 years, they've gone from first flight to velocities we can't match. Senior Scholar Methesian nodded slowly. He's correct. I've reviewed their technical data. Their approach is chaos. Nothing follows our protocols. Everything is experimental. But it functions because they're not afraid to try new things. Sovereign Thessara raised her appendage for silence. High Marshal Vorrax, what is your assessment of the human threat level? The High Marshal took a deep breath. Militarily? Currently low? They have exploration ships, not warships. Maybe 25 to 35 vessels total. We have 16 fleets with over 5,000 ships. We could destroy them. But Sovereign prompted. But in 10 years? 20? They advance so rapidly. If they decide to construct warships using their velocity and their creativity, they could become a serious problem. Then we should strike now, Vorrax said, while they're weak. No. The Sovereign's voice was firm. We will not initiate conflict with a species we don't understand. Besides, how would we strike? We can't catch them. As if on cue, an alert chimed. A young officer entered the chamber looking nervous. Forgive the interruption, Your Majesty, she said, but there's a human ship requesting permission to approach Kareth Prime. Every assembly member started speaking at once. The Sovereign raised her appendage again. Kind of ship? They identify it as a diplomatic vessel, the Endeavor. They're requesting an audience with you, Your Majesty. They want to talk, and I quote, as equals to equals. Vorrax laughed harshly. Equals? They have 30 ships. We have thousands. How are we equal? But the Sovereign wasn't laughing. She was thinking. These humans were bold, reckless perhaps, but also extremely dangerous if made into enemies. How long until they arrive? She asked. They're already here, Your Majesty. They're in orbit. The chamber erupted again. Already here. Kareth Prime had the most advanced defenses in the Dominion. Thousands of satellites, hundreds of defense platforms, comprehensive scanning networks. Nothing should be able to reach orbit without being detected hours in advance. How did they bypass our defenses? High Marshal Vorrax demanded. The young officer looked embarrassed. They didn't avoid them, High Marshal. They just arrived so fast that by the time we detected them, they were already here. They've been waiting in orbit for 25 minutes. They sent a courteous message asking if now was a convenient time to talk. Sovereign Thessera felt a headache forming behind her eyes. These humans were going to be a problem. She could sense it. But they were also fascinating. Tell them, she said slowly, that I will grant them an audience. Tomorrow at midday, standard diplomatic protocols. The officer bowed and departed. Senior Scholar Methesian moved closer to the Sovereign. Your Majesty, with respect, is this wise? We know nothing about them. Exactly, the Sovereign said. We know nothing, so we must learn. Besides, they came here to our capital. Either they're incredibly courageous, or incredibly foolish. Or both, High Marshal Vorrax muttered. The Sovereign stood, observing the holographic display showing the Endeavor in orbit above her world. A small ship insignificant compared to the might of the Dominion, but velocity made it dangerous. Innovation made it unpredictable, and courage made it impossible to intimidate. Assembly dismissed, the Sovereign said. High Marshal, Senior Scholar remain. We need to prepare for tomorrow. As the Assembly members filed out, Jexathon approached the Sovereign. Your Majesty. Why, Because I believe these humans might teach us something we've forgotten. The Sovereign studied the young Assembly member. And what is that? How to dream, Jexathon said simply. The Sovereign didn't answer, but she nodded. Chapter 4. Ambassador David Chen walked down the grand corridor of the Imperial Citadel, and he was not impressed. Oh, it was beautiful. Crystal walls that sparkled with internal light, floating illumination spheres that moved like stars, floors so polished he could see his reflection clearly. But it was also cold, sterile, too perfect. 2 Kareth guards walked beside him. They were both tall and elegant, wearing ceremonial armor that probably hadn't seen actual combat in centuries. They kept glancing at him nervously. Chen smiled at them. Nice place you've got here. The guards didn't respond. They probably weren't permitted to talk to him. Behind Chen walked Captain Sophia Reyes. She had insisted on accompanying him, even though this was a diplomatic meeting. Just in case things go wrong, she had said. Chen knew that really meant she didn't trust the Dominion not to try something foolish. The corridor opened into a massive chamber. The Eternal Throne sat at the far end, elevated on a platform. Sovereign Thessera sat there, appearing regal and imposing. Around her stood the Grand Assembly, dozens of Kirith in formal robes, all watching Chen with 6 eyes each. Chen walked directly up to the throne. He didn't bow. He just smiled and waved. "Your Majesty," he said pleasantly, "thanks for seeing us. I'm David Chen, Earth's ambassador to this region. This is Captain Reyes. She's here for moral support." The sovereign stared at him. The entire assembly stared at him. Nobody moved. Finally, Assembly Member Vorrax spoke. "Ambassador Chen, you are in the presence of Sovereign Thessera, ruler of the Kirith Dominion, master of 52,000 systems, keeper of the eternal flame. You will show proper respect." Chen glanced at Sophia. She shrugged. He looked back at the assembly. "No disrespect intended," he said, "but we're here to talk as equals. You don't bow to me, I don't bow to you. Fair?" "Fair?" Vorrax looked like she might explode. "You represent a species with 30 ships. We have thousands. How are we equal?" Chen pulled out a small tablet and activated it. A holographic star map appeared, showing human space. "We have 30 ships here in your area," he said, "but back home, we've got 400 more in production, 7 space stations, 16 colony worlds, and about 9 billion very curious, very determined humans who really want to see what's out here in the galaxy." He expanded the map. "Your dominion is old and powerful. We respect that. But you can't catch our ships. You can't stop us from exploring. You can't control where we go or who we talk to. So yes, we're equal because neither of us can force the other to do anything." The chamber went silent. Chen could see he had made his point. The Dominion was accustomed to controlling everything, but they couldn't control humanity. That made the Dominion nervous. Good nervous meant they'd listen. Sovereign Thessera spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm and measured. "Ambassador Chen, your logic is sound. We cannot control you, but we could destroy you." "You could try," Sophia said from behind Chen. She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. The sovereign's eyes focused on her. "You doubt the Imperial Armada?" "I doubt you could catch us long enough to destroy us. And even if you did, Earth would send more ships, then more. We're persistent like that. Eventually you'd get tired of chasing us and we'd still be here. So maybe let's skip the whole conflict thing and just talk." Chen suppressed a smile. Sophia had absolutely no filter. That's why he brought her. Senior Scholar Methesian stepped forward. "Ambassador Captain, please understand our position. For 300,000 years we have maintained order in this region. Your presence threatens that order." "How?" Chen asked genuinely. "We're exploring, trading, making friends. How is that a threat?" "You're changing things," Methesian said. "You give technology to species we've kept limited. You share information freely. You move too fast. Everything you do creates chaos." "Or opportunity," said a younger assembly member. Chen remembered his name, Jexathon. "Maybe chaos is what we need." Vorrax glared at him. "Counselor Jexathon, that's enough." But Jexathon ignored her. He walked down from the assembly platform and approached Chen. "Ambassador, I have a question. Why do you explore?" Chen blinked. "Why?" "Yes. The Dominion explored for resources, for territory, for strategic advantage. But you seem to explore for no specific reason. Why?" Chen thought about it. "Because it's there. Because we're curious. Because sitting still is boring." He grinned. "When humans discovered fire, we didn't just use it for warmth. We asked, what else burns? When we invented boats, we didn't just fish near shore. We sailed out to see what was beyond the horizon. When we reached space, we didn't stop at our moon. We kept going. It's who we are." "You explore for adventure," Jexathon said, wonder in his voice. "Yeah, pretty much." "That's insane," Vorrax said. "That's humanity," Sophia added proudly. High Marshal Vorrax had been silent until now. He stepped forward, looking directly at Sophia. "Captain Reyes, I reviewed the footage of your departure. Your acceleration should have killed everyone aboard." "It almost did," Sophia admitted. 3 people passed out. Jackson threw up. I bit my tongue so hard I bled, but we survived. "Why take such a risk?" "Because you were trying to intimidate us." "Nobody intimidates Earth and gets away with it." She smiled. "Also, we needed to test the experimental drive anyway. Seemed like a good opportunity." The High Marshal shook his head in disbelief. Then surprisingly he laughed. It was a short, sharp laugh, but genuine. "You're all insane." "Yeah, we get that a lot," Chen said. The Sovereign raised her appendage. "Enough. Ambassador Chen, Captain Reyes, here is our proposal. The Dominion will grant humanity permission to travel through our space. In exchange, you will share the principles of your propulsion technology, not the exact specifications, just the theory." Chen considered it. "And what else?" "We want to establish a cultural exchange program, send Kyrith citizens to Earth, learn from each other." That was better than Chen expected. He glanced at Sophia. She nodded slightly. "Deal," Chen said, "with one condition. You open the trade routes to the Thessari, Kronath and Vesperian Collective. Let them trade freely, stop limiting their technology." Vorrax looked outraged. "Absolutely not. That would destabilize the entire region." "Or make it stronger," Jexathon said. "Strong allies are better than controlled subjects." The Sovereign was silent for a long moment. Her 6 eyes studied Chen carefully. "You care about species you just met. Why?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Chen said simply. "They deserve the same chances we got. The freedom to grow, to learn, to make their own mistakes." "Mistakes," the Sovereign repeated. "The Dominion doesn't make mistakes. We plan. We perfect. We maintain order." "And you've been doing the same thing for 3,000 years, Sophia said. "No offense, Your Majesty, but you're stagnant. You've stopped growing. That's not order. That's stasis." More gasps from the assembly. Nobody talked to the Sovereign like that. But Thessara didn't look angry. She looked thoughtful. "High Marshal Vorrax," she said, "your honest opinion. Do we need what the humans have?" The High Marshal took a deep breath. "Yes, Your Majesty. Not just their technology, their mindset. We've become too comfortable, too safe. We've forgotten how to take risks." "Traitor," Vorrax hissed. "Realist," he corrected. "I've served the Dominion for 400 years. I've seen us decline slowly, so slowly nobody noticed. But these humans held up a mirror, and what I see reflected back disturbs me." Senior Scholar Mephesian nodded. "I agree. We must adapt or become irrelevant." The Sovereign stood up from her throne. The entire chamber went silent. She walked down the steps, past the guards, past the assembly, until she stood directly in front of Chen. "Ambassador," she said, "I accept your condition. The trade routes will open. But know this. If humanity causes chaos, if your freedom leads to conflict, I will hold you personally responsible." Chen extended his hand, a human gesture. "If we screw up, you can blame me. Fair enough." The Sovereign observed Chen's hand. Then slowly she reached out and grasped it. Her grip was firm but not crushing. "Fair enough," the Sovereign said. Behind them, Jexathon smiled. Sophia looked relieved. High Marshal Vorrax nodded with respect. Only Vorrax looked angry. But she stayed silent. Chapter 5. The treaty signing ceremony was almost finished. Ambassador Chen stood next to Sovereign Thessara, both of them holding the signed document. Recording devices captured the historic moment. The Grand Assembly looked on, some pleased, some still doubtful. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the citadel. A terrible wailing sound filled the air. Guards rushed into the chamber, their weapons suddenly at the ready. High Marshal Varenser grabbed a communication device from his belt. "What's happening?" he barked into it. The voice on the other end was panicked. "High Marshal, it's the Vorrax Swarm. They've entered the border sectors, millions of them." The chamber went cold. Chen saw the Kyrith faces turn pale, their eyes widening in fear. "What's the Vorrax Swarm?" Sophia asked, her hand moving instinctively toward her sidearm. Senior Scholar, Methesian answered, his voice shaking. "Our ancient enemy. They're not a civilization, they're a plague. Living ships that reproduce and evolve in battle. We fought them 7,000 years ago. It took us 400 years and cost billions of lives to drive them away. And now they're back," the Sovereign said quietly. Varenser was shouting orders into his communicator. "Mobilize all fleets. Emergency jump to the border sectors. Full battle readiness." He turned to the Sovereign. "Your Majesty, the 8th Fleet is closest. They can reach the border worlds in 13 days, but the swarm will arrive at the colony planets in 4 days. We have 23 billion civilians in the projected attack zone." "Can we evacuate them?" Chen asked. "Not in 4 days. We'd need weeks." Sophia pulled out her own communicator. "Star Endeavor Star, this is Captain Reyes. Patch me through to all human vessels in the sector." "Sophia, what are you doing?" Chen asked. "Something crazy, obviously." She waited, as the connection established. "All human ships. This is Reyes. We've got a situation. Hostile force called the Vorrax Swarm attacking Kyrith border worlds. Billions of civilians at risk. How fast can you get to these coordinates?" Her device beeped with responses. The Prometheus answered first. "Reyes, this is Captain Okonjo on the Prometheus. We're 45 light-years out. We can be there in 16 hours. More voices chimed in. The Discovery, the Pathfinder, the Horizon, the Magellan, the Armstrong. 7 human ships scattered across the sector, all agreeing to come. "Negative," High Marshal Varenser said firmly. "Captain Reyes, this is not your fight. The swarm is too dangerous. Your exploration vessels are not warships." "Neither are your passenger liners," Sophia shot back. "But I bet you're going to use everything you've got." "Our ships are designed for combat if necessary." "And ours are designed to survive impossible conditions. That's pretty useful in a fight." Sophia looked at Chen. "Ambassador, your call. Do we help or do we follow protocol?" Chen didn't hesitate. "We help. That's what allies do." Sovereign Thessera stared at them both. "You barely know us. We threaten to imprison you. Why would you risk your lives for our people?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Chen said simply. "Besides, we signed a treaty like 5 minutes ago. Allies, remember?" The Sovereign closed her 6 eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was something new there. Respect. "High Marshal, accept their help. Coordinate with the human vessels. Use whatever tactics they suggest." "Your Majesty." "That's in order." Chapter 6. The next 3 days were chaos. The Kyrith 8th Fleet, massive and powerful, lumbered toward the border. The human ships arrived much faster, reaching the threatened colonies in just 16 hours. Captain Sophia Reyes stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, now hastily refitted with whatever weapons they could install. The colony world of Thessera Minor hung below them. 11 billion Kyrith lived there. In 40 hours the swarm would arrive. "Okay," Sophia said to her crew. "We've got 7 ships. They've got millions. Anybody have any good ideas?" Jackson Torres, who had transferred from the Prometheus to help, pulled up a holographic display. "The swarm ships are biological. They move in coordinated clusters. According to the Kyrith data, they're very good at surrounding enemy vessels and overwhelming them with numbers." "So standard tactics won't work," Sophia said. "Standard tactics never work for us anyway," Jackson pointed out. "We don't do standard." Captain Okonjo's face appeared on the screen. She was on the Prometheus, now orbiting the neighboring colony world. Rays, I've been thinking. The Kirith fight in formation organized, predictable. That's what the swarm expects. But we don't fight like that. We're chaos, Sophia said, catching on. Exactly. The swarm evolved to counter Kirith tactics. They've never seen humans fight. Sophia grinned. It was not a nice grin. It was the grin of someone about to do something very stupid and very dangerous. All right, people, here's the plan. We don't protect the colonies, we can't. 7 ships against millions? We'd lose. Instead, we buy time. We confuse them. We make them chase us. How? Aisha asked from communications. We be annoying. We dart in, fire everything we've got, then run before they can respond. We split up, regroup, split up again. We make them think there are more of us than there really are. Jackson looked worried. That's going to put massive stress on our engines. We'll be pushing them past safety limits. When have we ever cared about safety limits? Fair point. The swarm arrived 40 hours later. The sky above Thesara Minor turned dark as millions of bioships entered the system. They looked like diseased whales, all teeth and tentacles and pulsing flesh. Their weapons were organic too, spitting acid and launching bone-like projectiles. The Kirith defense platforms fired first. Bright beams of energy lanced out, destroying hundreds of swarm ships, but hundreds were nothing. Thousands more took their place. Then the human ship struck. The Endeavour dove through a cluster of swarm vessels at 0.72 light speed. Its hastily installed railguns fired continuously, tearing through bioships like paper. Before the swarm could respond, the Endeavour was gone already 3 light minutes away. The Prometheus came from a different angle, its fusion cores running so hot they glowed. It didn't slow down. It just punched straight through a swarm formation, shields at maximum, smashing through them like a meteor. The other human ships followed the same pattern: hit hard, move fast, never stay still. The swarm had never seen anything like it. They were used to slow, predictable enemies. Humans were neither. The swarm's coordination broke down as clusters chased different human ships in different directions. "It's working!" Jackson shouted. "They're splitting their forces!" "Don't celebrate yet," Sophia warned. "We've only bought a few hours. Where's the Kirith fleet?" "Still 9 days out," Aisha reported. 9 days. They had to hold for 9 days against millions of swarm ships with 7 exploration vessels. It was impossible. So naturally, the humans tried anyway. For 4 days they fought, they ran, they regrouped. They lost the Discovery when its engines finally gave out. The crew evacuated in escape pods, and the Pathfinder swooped in to grab them while dodging swarm fire. Captain Zhang on the Armstrong came up with a tactic she called the fastball. She accelerated directly at a swarm cluster, built up to 0.91 light speed, then cut engines and let momentum carry her through them. The kinetic impact alone destroyed hundreds of bioships. The Kirith civilians watched from below in awe and terror. These humans were insane, but they were also the only things standing between the colonies and annihilation. On day 5, the swarm adapted. They stopped chasing individual ships. Instead, they formed a massive net trying to trap the humans. "Uh-oh," Jackson said. "They're learning." "Then we learn faster," Sophia said. She opened a channel to all human ships. "New plan. We all meet at these coordinates, full speed. On my mark, we're going to do something really dumb." "Dumber than what we're already doing?" Captain Okonjo asked. "Way dumber, trust me." All 7 remaining human ships converged at a single point, just outside the swarm net. The bioships swarmed toward them, sensing an opportunity to destroy all the humans at once. "Now," Sophia shouted. All 7 ships fired their engines simultaneously. 18 fusion cores per ship. 126 cores, total, all pointed in the same direction. The blast was incredible. A miniature star formed in space. The wave of superheated plasma washed over the swarm net, burning through millions of bioships in seconds. Then all 7 human ships jumped to maximum velocity and scattered before the remaining swarm could react. "Did that just work?" Jackson asked, staring at his screens in disbelief. "No idea," Sophia admitted. "I made it up 10 seconds before we did it." That's when High Marshal Vorrax arrived with the 8th Fleet. 350 massive Kirith warships dropped out of FTL space and immediately opened fire. Their weapons were powerful and precise. But more importantly, the humans had bought enough time to evacuate most of the civilians. The High Marshal opened a channel to Sophia. "Captain Reyes, what have you done to my orderly battle space?" Sophia looked at the chaos around her: burning swarm ships, scattered formations, confused enemy clusters. "We made it messy. You're welcome. I don't know whether to thank you or court-martial you." "Why not both?" "Despite everything," the High Marshal laughed. Then he gave an order that shocked his entire fleet. "All ships, follow the human tactics, abandon formation, engage freely, adapt as needed." Senior Scholar Methesian, who was aboard the flagship, looked horrified. "High Marshal, that's against every protocol." "The humans have no protocols," Vorrax said, "and are still alive. That tells me something." Chapter 7. The battle lasted 3 more days. It was brutal, chaotic, and nothing like any conflict the Kirith had ever fought. They lost ships, they lost people, but they also won. The swarm was driven back, not destroyed, but broken enough to retreat. The colony world survived. 23 billion Kirith civilians lived, because 7 human exploration ships had done the impossible. When it was over, Sophia sat in her command chair, exhausted. Jackson was passed out at his station. Aisha was quietly crying with relief. The Endeavour was barely holding together hull breaches on 3 decks, 2 engines completely gone, life support running on emergency power. But they were alive. The communication panel chimed. Sovereign Thesara's face appeared on the screen. "Captain Reyes." Sophia straightened up, trying to look professional despite the exhaustion. "Your Majesty." "You saved my people. You had no obligation to fight. You could have run your ships certainly fast enough. Why did you stay?" Sophia thought about it. The real answer was complicated duty, honor, stubbornness, the simple fact that running away wasn't in her nature, but she settled on something simpler. "Because that's what humans do," she said. "When there's trouble, we don't run. We help. It's annoying sometimes, honestly. Gets us into a lot of problems, but it's who we are." The Sovereign was silent for a long moment. "The Dominion owes you a debt that cannot be repaid." "Nah," Sophia said. "Just buy us dinner sometime. We're allies now, remember? Allies help each other. That's kind of the whole point." Behind the Sovereign, Sophia could see High Marshal Vorrax nodding with approval. She could see Jexathon smiling. She could even see Vorthix looking grudgingly impressed. "Captain Reyes," the Sovereign said slowly, "I believe humanity and the Dominion have much to learn from each other." "Yeah," Sophia agreed. "We really do." She closed the channel and leaned back in her chair. "Jackson," she said, "wake up." What?" "Plot a course home. We need repairs, and I need a really long nap." "Home it is, Captain." The Endeavour limped away from the battlefield, surrounded by what remained of the human exploration fleet. Behind them, the Kirith 8th Fleet was already beginning cleanup operations. But something had changed. For 300,000 years the Kirith Dominion had been alone at the top, powerful, stable, stagnant. They had forgotten what it meant to take risks, to fail, to grow. Now humanity had arrived, chaotic, reckless, impossibly fast. They broke every rule, ignored every protocol, and somehow survived anyway. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere, In the back of her exhausted mind, Sophia Reyes smiled. Because there was always more to explore, more to discover, more impossible things to do. That was humanity. That was who they were. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me to create more HFY videos for you guys.